You're listening to Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss Spirit podcast with Ben Garrett.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time!
Hello again, friends, and welcome inside, at least for me, the RiverLand Roofing Studios, that little house up top, RiverLand Roofing, for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297, riverlandroofing.com. Michael Katz is today's guest on Talk of Champions. My man Michael covers your Ole Miss Rebels for the Daily Journal. I cover Ole Miss for the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, and a fleet of on three. Sign up today for the low cost of $1. $1 to get all this goodness, this Ole Miss goodness, with me and now Michael Katz. Michael, how are we?
I'm honored to finally be invited on. I've been waiting.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've been wanting to have you on this show, but, you know, you're on Feinbaum and other shows and stuff. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if you can, you know, if you've got time to fit in little old Ben Garrett.
This is my biggest honor by far.
See, you're just trying to make me blush now. Hey, tell me, last night we were both at the basketball game. Ole Miss's 15th all-time win over Kentucky. Now, this is not the Kentucky. I told you this on Press Row. This is the Kentucky that this isn't Bam Adebayo out there. This isn't Julius Randle and Anthony Davis, but still a win for Ole Miss over Kentucky in basketball. It doesn't happen. Hasn't happened very often in this 100-plus year history. That game, Ole Miss dominated from start to finish. We're going to pick linchpin Ole Miss football Rebels in a second, but that game, Mike, from your vantage point, from your seat on Press Row, what was your biggest takeaway?
It was impressive. I mean, I'm not surprised Ole Miss won. It seemed like a pretty good matchup, just given, like you said, this is not the Kentucky with, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and John Wall and Bam and those type of dynamic athletes. It's still a very, very good Kentucky team. But, a little differently constructed, and they've been kind of going through some growing pains the last couple of weeks. But their defense was always a little bit lacking this year. We knew they could score. But Ole Miss, when they want to play defense, they play defense really, really well. And they can score too. When they're hitting threes, they're pretty tough to beat. And I mean, that first half was about as good as I've seen them play, all year. And I think Chris Beard pretty much agreed as much. I mean, when they come in averaging 8.8 threes per game, they make 9 in the first half alone. Again, that was the number 3 scoring offense in the country at almost 90 points. They held them to 31 in the first half. And I know, obviously, the second half, I think you probably play a little bit different when you're up by 27 or whatever it was. And I know Chris Beard was not super happy with defense in that second half because it got, I don't want to say dicey, but probably a little bit more uncomfortable than they would have liked. But start to finish, that thing really didn't get within single digits. That was really impressive. A lot of different guys doing a lot of different things. I think the important thing too is Matt Morrell. They need him to be that scorer because you're getting to that time of the year where you're going to need guys to take over games, and he's a guy who's been hurt all year and hasn't had the opportunity to really do those sorts of things that we've gotten used to him doing. I think seeing him get in that groove was really big too.
It was huge. Matt Morrell scored 20 points for the first time this year, 20 or more points, I should say, because he scored 24, which was remarkable to me when we were talking about it in the postgame, because I'm like, dude, this guy led Ole Miss in scoring for 3 straight years, but it speaks to, like you said, what he's been dealing with, the injuries and a lower body injury, maybe a knee. He's dealing with some stuff. He's not even practicing, more just rehabbing and doing everything he can in the training room to get ready. So a huge game for Matt Morrell, and Katz nailed that. I mean, if Ole Miss is making threes at that kind of a rate, that's a really hard out, man. They're a really good basketball team because they entered the game and left the game top 10 in the country in assist to turnover, one of the best defensive teams in college basketball. And last night, as we're sitting there diagnosing it together, waiting on Chris to come into the press room, we notice 24 assists and only 1 turnover. That's insane. The least amount of turnovers for an SEC team against a conference opponent in 25 years. Katz, it was nuts.
I'm not one who generally will go back and rewatch like every part of a game, but part of me really wants to go back and be like, did we miss one? No. 1 turnover is absolutely bonkers. I thought it was a mistake. I was like, that must mean 10.
Yeah.
Or, or like 11. And I was like, no, this was just apparently the best ball security game ever.
Yeah. Also, it looked like a misprint, or like the stat sheet had been hacked, just like we thought Shams had been hacked when it was announced that Luka had been traded to these Los Angeles Lakers. I see the LA hat. He's a Dodgers fan. I'm wearing my Braves shirt. You can't see it, but you can see Freddie Freeman a little bit up here. Tell me the NBA isn't rigged, Katz. Tell me it's not. Come on. If Stern were still alive, he would have vetoed that in a heartbeat. Is this collusion, or am I just wearing a tinfoil hat?
Well, rest in peace to David Stern. We have seen that one before. He has vetoed good things to the Lakers that set us back about a decade. Let me tell you, I actually fell asleep when this happened. I was passed out.
Awesome.
So like I wake up to like go to the bathroom and I have like 100 texts. I was like, oh my God, like what happened? Like,
Somebody died.
Is everyone okay?
Yeah.
And then like I look closer and it's just people like Luka ? I'm like, what the hell happened? And so I look and I'm just like, oh wow. I go to sleep for an hour and all hell breaks loose.
Yes.
Listen, collusion maybe. If you want to really talk about collusion, we can talk about them. But you know what? If it's collusion that benefits me, I say go for it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, can you rub off a little of this collusion on my teams? I'm not asking for it to stop. I'm just saying, let's share the wealth a little here. I mean, the Dodgers are deferring money left and right to the best players. Blake Snell is just, let's go get Blake Snell as our number 3 to go on top of the rest of our superstar lineup. All I'm saying is, hook us up. The Braves, maybe the Grizz could get some rub. Jimmy Butler doesn't even want to go there.
Where's he going to play? He doesn't want to play anywhere.
Nowhere. He wants to play in Phoenix because, I don't know.
I will say I don't think we're going to be able to help the Cowboys. I think that's a lost cause.
I know, man. I know, but also I will look. Hope springs eternal for every team that doesn't have Jerry Jones as its owner and operator. That's all I'm going to say. For the rest of us, we just sit in agony. This is Talk of Champions, as always, brought to you by RiverLand Roofing, the little house up top, riverlandroofing.com, 662-644-4297. Few, if any, are doing more for Ole Miss athletics in the name, image, and likeness NIL space than our friends at RiverLand Roofing. So Rebels helping Rebels, visit them, and they're the best kind of people, man. Good Rebels. All right, so Michael Katz is here, and we're going to be picking now linchpin Ole Miss Rebels. The first one for me, going into next year, knowing that Ole Miss, Katz, is replacing 18 of its starting 22, 9 on offense, 9 on defense. However, I know I am still quite bullish on what Ole Miss could be next year. There's a lot of optimism about Austin Simmons. He's probably an obvious linchpin Rebel. But I'm thinking when I'm picking these type of Rebels, one thing for sure, if they can latch on in their spots, if they can be what Ole Miss needs them to be, how the roster can fill in around them, it can all fall into place around them. That's what I see with these guys that can take a important position that maybe isn't always thought about, solidify it to where you never have to think about it. And number 1 for me, and we talked to him on Saturday, is William Eccles, mid-season All-American according to On3, defensive tackle, replacing either Walter Nolan or J.J. Pegues. Ole Miss last season terrorized opposing offenses as far as the sack numbers are concerned. Historic numbers. Ole Miss set number of school records, finished second in the league in scoring defense, and most of that had to do with the defensive line that got in the backfield constantly. You're replacing all of that. Now Suntarine Perkins is back. Now Xavier Harris is back. Jam Brown is back. But Ole Miss needs a solidified starter at one of those 2 defensive tackle spots. And William Eccles, former 4-star, Alabama wanted him out of high school. Everybody wanted him out of high school. And State wanted him after this year. But that's neither here nor there. He is my first linchpin Rebel. He matters. If he can stick there, Deshaun Womack and Princewell Uman-Mielen, the younger brother of Princely, at edge, Suntarine Perkins, again, back starting. Xavier Harris beside him, I think, could be a monster as a junior. So much to like if he can stick. Here's what Williams said about learning from the Walter Nolans and the Princely Uman-Mielens, all of those one-and-done Rebels who are now going on to have incredible draft processes. This is William Eccles.
You're going to be expected to step into a pivotal role this year. Where are you at in terms of your development? How are you ready for that?
Last year we just learned from them guys, and I think I feel like they set a standard for Ole Miss defense and D-line. So just really continue the standard and just getting better day by day in the offseason.
What's your height and weight right now?
Right now I'm 6'4", 308.
You ever talk to Cam Franklin about, hey, this is our time, it's time for us to arrive?
Yeah, man, Cam talk every day. They really like my dog for real. Like, man, him probably like the closest on the team. Like, as far, yeah. Like, we beat each other every day, leading every day. So, yeah, man, him talk every day, and we know, like, it's really our time, so we got to step up and be leaders.
Doesn't matter if it's Walter or Jared, whoever, every time they say who's next on the D-line, you're one of the first ones they mention. So, like, what for you changed this year? Where did you come along? How far did you come along from where you started, and what did you learn from those guys?
Really, like, just coming in as a young guy, as a freshman, and really just, like, earning playing time, it was really hard. So I really just earn their respect. And, just showing them that I can, like, really take over the roles once they leave. So I feel like that was a big part of my development, just showing that I can be out there playing.
That was William Eccles, second-year Ole Miss defensive tackle, the first of our linchpin rebels we're picking here on Talk of Champions. Katz has got his first. Give it to me.
I'm going to start with TJ Daugherty, and I say that because last year, linebacker has been a little, maybe not a star spot for Ole Miss the last few years, but it was last season with Pooh Paul. Pooh Paul was everything they could have possibly wanted. He was dominant, especially in tackles for loss. He lived in opposing backfields, and I think we saw flashes from TJ Daugherty. Maybe a little bit of inconsistency here and there. He's obviously a younger player than Pooh was. But I think as much as we talked about how good that defensive line was, and again, that was, for my money, the best defensive line in the country last year, I think Pooh Paul being such a force up the middle at linebacker was so big, and I think they need, is TJ Daugherty the same type of player? No, but I think they need a similar dominant sort of guy to step up there. And he's been in the program for a while now. He's athletic. It seems like he's become a leader. I think that if this defense isn't going to drop off, it's a big part of that is going to be because of his taking that next step.
And he got so much better throughout the year, and he solidified that spot because there was some alternating. They had some Kari Coleman. They had some other guys going in and out. Chris Pooh Paul, once he got into the starting lineup, I don't know why he didn't start against Furman. I really don't. That's one thing I got to know. Remember that in August when we go to Ole Miss Media Day, when we get to actually talk to like Pete Golding and them. Hey, I got one question, Pete. Why didn't Chris start Furman? Please, I just got to know that. But once he did start, he didn't come out of the lineup whenever he was healthy. So TJ, there was a little bit of a rotation, and then he became that guy. That's a great one because if he's TJ Daugherty, every snap starter, captain with the little dot on the helmet to get all the calls in. If he's going to be that guy, the pickings of Andrew Jones, the transfer linebacker from Grambling, Jaden Yates from Marshall, who is, I think, going to be an absolute monster now unleashed in the SEC. There are a number of guys that they recruited that position where it could all, again, fall into place as linchpin rebels are supposed to do. The second one for me is Jalen Braxton, the transfer cornerback from Arkansas. We talked to him at the IPF as well. And Ole Miss lost both of its starting corners, again, replacing 18 of its starting 22, 9 on offense, 9 on defense, and both cornerbacks. Jalen Braxton needs to step in and be that same kind of impact corner like Trey Amos was, a one and done potentially at the boundary that is on an island unto himself and is never thrown at, because when you don't have to worry about the boundary, Ole Miss figured it out with the field corner. It was Jaden Kennedy for a while. He's in the portal. Isaiah Hamilton, but he finally didn't click until the Gator Bowl when he got the big pick. They need Jalen Braxton to be good as advertised an all SEC freshman in 2023. Injuries derailed him last year. Here's what he had to say about being that guy that comes in and steps in and starts for Ole Miss immediately and potentially only for 1 year.
How's it been so far at Ole Miss, man?
It's been good. Just getting used to the city, just getting used to my schedule. But so far, I love everything.
What do you think about the early impressions, first impressions of the team and the talents you got around you, man? What do you think about this group?
I feel like everybody's got a great mindset and everybody want to work hard and get better every single day. So.
Jalen, you picked Ole Miss kind of early in the process. Who else was really in serious contention for you?
I had 3 schools. It was A&M, Ole Miss, and Missouri. But it was really came down between A&M and Ole Miss. It was just like the coaching staff here, like their energy, and then just the scheme of the defense. Like it was something I wanted to be a part of.
Obviously, fans are curious about how all that portal stuff works with offers, and you talk to collectives and all that stuff. What was that process like?
So like you hit the portal, coach calls you. It happens really fast though too. So just like everybody blowing up your phone, and then you just gotta pick like the schools that you're really serious about and where you would really consider going. So that's what I did, and then you talk all the collective stuff like on the campus, stuff like that.
Do you do that, or did you have a representation that sort of guided you through it?
I did it myself this time. Moving forward, I'm gonna have some reputation. So yeah.
You had Luke Haas, Patrick Kutas, both of those guys, former teammates at Arkansas, that came over here too. Did that kind of maybe smooth the path for you a little bit?
Yeah, it actually did. Just having some familiar faces around. I actually seen Kutas on my official visit, and I was like, "You like you?" He's like, "Yeah, I love you." So, and then just them being here is a great thing too.
How much did you see guys like Trey Amos come in a year and ball out in a transfer system like that? Walton, all those guys impact guys like you that get in and see Ole Miss as a viable option. How did their success kind of lead you here?
That was definitely an eye-opening thing for me. I was actually with Trey on my OV here. And just got to talk to him. He was like telling me like this is a great place to be, and if you looking to do one and done, so you see how I did it, so you could do it here too.
Protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
This is Cali. With C-Spire's blazing fast nationwide 5G network, she's got her fans in the palm of her hands. Live streaming her Mississippi blues from her phone wherever she is. To out there wherever they are. Right now, get the latest 5G phone on us. Only at C-Spire, customer inspired.
That was Jalen Braxton, the second of 3 linchpin rebels for me. The second for you, Michael Katz, is who?
I'm going to go with an Arkansas transfer as well. I know they have a lot to choose from. But I'm going to go with Patrick Kutas, the offensive lineman. Look, we look all up and down this roster last year, and there were NFL caliber guys at every spot, except it seemed like the offensive line. That always seemed like it was a little bit of a problem. And in tough games, the offensive line did have its issues. And I know, Kutas, again, do we know he's going to be an NFL guy? No, of course not. But we know that he was a high-profile transfer that is going to shore things up. And I think that they need, as much as this built on the defensive line last offseason, I think building on the offensive line, I know they tried and it worked here and there, but I think that they need it to hit this time because, the run game struggled at times last year. The pass protection struggled at times last year. If you can shore those things up with a young quarterback and younger skill players, I think it makes everything a lot easier. And I think that they need to start developing linemen that look like NFL guys, if that makes sense. You've got it at every other position right now. I think you got to start hitting on that. And I think when you start hitting on that, that's when you start going all systems go.
That's a really good point because just this offseason alone, guys that they thought were the future on the offensive line transferred out. Preston Cushman transferred. Kavion Broussard transferred. He signed with Arkansas. This is a player, if Sam Pittman, a former offensive line coach, probably the best in the country, wants your transfer offensive lineman, that should tell you something. And it should also tell you something about Patrick Kutas coming from Arkansas. Yes, a perfect linchpin rebel for Ole Miss because they're replacing both of their guards. Diego Pounds is back to play at left tackle. I talked to him on Saturday. He's doing great. They had them doing fat camp. The offensive lineman doing fat camp. They had these vests on. He said, "Yeah, I'm going to fat camp today."
Love it.
Right tackle is supposed to be Jaden Williams, and then with Kutas at right guard, it would lead to who's the center, which for me is my third linchpin rebel, Bryson Sanders. You don't have Jarquan Scott, the Southern Miss transfer, on the roster anymore. Reese McIntyre, who started every game last year, he's not on the roster anymore. Caleb Warren, who was a multi-year starter for Ole Miss at center, didn't play at all last year. He is no longer on the roster. It is now Bryson Sanders' time. He was the number 2 center for Ole Miss all year, but never really played. He was the snapper for Austin Simmons in practices all year. So I think that's pretty important, obviously, for the chemistry breaking in a new quarterback. There is some symmetry there. And if he can be that guy, and he's talked about this when we caught up with him at the IPF on Saturday, if he can be that guy at center and be that stabilizing piece, Kudus at right guard, Jaden Williams, who was their highest graded offensive lineman when he was healthy. That's a good next level caliber lineman if he's healthy at right tackle. That is an upgrade over Micah Pettis, who transferred to Florida State. They had enough of the Micah Pettis experience. They were done with it. He's now at Florida State. And if Diego can, I wouldn't say he had a bad year last year. It just was very uneven for what they needed him to be. I mean, he was the blindside protector for Drake May at North Carolina, for goodness sakes. And then he comes over here, and too often he was on skates. But I think he got better and better as the year carried on, especially in the Gator Bowl. He looked more like what I thought he would look like, because when you stand next to him, he's a mountain of a man, looks like $1 million, but it starts with the interior. That was a problem all year because Reese McIntyre was a former walk-on or like low-graded recruit. The Washington transfers, Buelo and Nate Kalepo, were fine, but not really. There wasn't a lot of interior push. Here's Bryson Sanders after or before during Junior Day on Saturday, talking about his role for next year and how it's his time now at Ole Miss as its starting center.
And getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah, it's been really good. You know, after the bowl game, I gave myself about a week off and came back up here a couple weeks early, just trying to get back into it. You know, it's my third year here, so it's kind of my time. So I'm ready to take that role and just ready to get back into it.
It's obviously a different era in college sports, right? Than even when you signed, as crazy as that sounds. I know you hadn't played a whole lot your first couple of years. Did you think about the portal? Did you think about exploring options, or were you pretty dead set on staying here?
I mean, I think everyone, when you're not playing, always thinks about, you know, wanting to play. I mean, that's the reason you play football, is to play. But I've always been pretty dead set on Ole Miss. You know, I knew coming here, there's 5th and 6th years ahead of me, so I just needed to wait my time and learn from them. And, you know, now that they're all gone, it's my time.
Where you been working? Has it been center and guard, or just strictly center?
Just mainly center.
What do they talk to you about in regards to those conversations? About, I mean, I'm sure they talked to you about. I know you're thinking about the portal. So when you're thinking about that, do they look at the future, say you're the future at center? What were they saying to you? What those conversations like?
I mean, after the bowl game, you know, we don't really have any other center on the roster besides me, and they trust me. You know, they've seen me work hard in practice for the last 3 years, so they trust me. It's my time.
What is your height and weight up to? You're obviously bigger than you were when you got here.
Definitely bigger.
Probably without shoes, 6'5.5". I'm like 315.
Is that about what you wanted to be?
I mean, I think I've actually grown a couple inches since I've gotten here, but around 315 is what I want to be at.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Just how's it been working with John Garrison? How has he helped within your development?
Yeah, Coach Garrison's helped me a ton. He's a really smart guy, you know, in the film room, and learning from Reese and Buckshot, who's been here the last 2 years. I mean, those guys they're really smart guys. So just learning the offense from them and just learning blitzes, different fronts, it's helped me a lot.
What's the relationship like with Austin? That snap exchange obviously is important. Have y'all been working on that? Like, what's that relationship like with y'all?
Yeah, this past year we were both on the second team, so every practice it was me and him working reps. So, I mean, we got a good relationship. He's going to be a hell of a quarterback.
What did you learn from Reese and guys like that? Obviously, they're different size guys than you. They probably had to be effective in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got here, I wasn't at center. So when I made the transition to center, they just helped me. You know, center's one of the hardest positions, especially in this offense with how fast we play. So just learning the offense, the calls, and just different techniques.
That was Bryson Sanders, now the starting Ole Miss center, the guy that's going to be getting the ball to Austin Simmons, your new quarterback for the Ole Miss Rebels, replacing 3-year starter Jaxson Dart, who had a great run, by the way, before we get to your third linchpin Rebel, had a great run at the Senior Bowl, and his stock has really been climbing more and more since that Gator Bowl performance when he just went off. Absolutely. So what do you kind of think about where he is? What do you think about where he is right now, his draft stock and all that about Jaxson and all the other Rebels too? Because Walter Nolan, man, if that isn't a top 15 guy, I don't know what one looks like. I know he's a little short, but I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of Walter Nolan like the 20-ish range, and I'm just thinking like that's just way too low. Like I don't care what side he's so powerful and quick.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody watched him this year, he is dominant. I just don't understand how you can't see a top 15 player there. With Jaxson, it's interesting because I felt like he was always going to win the offseason with his workouts, his interviews. Like that's when he's really going to shine. When you can see the talent, you can see the person. I think the Senior Bowl was really big because the question with the Lane Kiffin offense is always how does that translate to pro concepts? And it sounds like he was really, really good for the most part at the Senior Bowl. I mean, we're seeing like QB3, like maybe someone goes up into the first round to get him. I think second round is pretty safe at this point, which is a pretty big jump from where we were a year ago. I mean, a year ago, this was, fourth, fifth, whatever. I mean, this is a guy who legitimately, if things fall right and the team falls in love with him, could be in the first round. It's a pretty remarkable jump. And, listen, I've always enjoyed working with Jaxson. I'm happy for him. He deserves the success. So it's been really interesting to watch this rise.
He's really benefiting. I'm not saying the draft class is bad, but it doesn't have that guy. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, there's all kind of risks there, not because of anything other than look at the tape, So Jaxson Dart, like I don't have to spend first round capital and get a guy who's kind of the same, if not a little bit better in certain areas. Yeah, I mean, it's just a safer bet. If you made me as a GM for an NFL team right now, Ben, you got to get a quarterback in this draft, man, but you got to get it at value. I'm waiting on Jaxson Dart. And yeah, it was second's a little rich for me. I don't care. It's better than drafting a guy like him in the first round. You know what I mean? So he's benefiting from his draft class. And like Katz talked about, he was always going to win interviews. He was always going to win workouts. He's great throwing on there. I mean, Jackson's a pro's pro. Now, I don't know what that translates to as far as an NFL career, but if he's at worst Chad Pennington, by God, I think it could be Chad Pennington. All right, Michael Katz, you're number 3. Linchpin Rebel.
I have another transfer. Former Oklahoma State wide receiver, John Stribling. Listen, we know that Caden Lee is a great player. He's good. But he's a very different sort of receiver. You bring in Deuce Alexander. He's a little smaller than Stribling. I think that they need a big-bodied guy like Trey Harris. I'm not saying DeJon Stribling is Trey Harris. But similar body types, the guy that can go win the contested catch. I think that this offense is at its best when they have a guy who can do those sorts of things. And we saw last year when they didn't have that body, the offense sometimes looked a little different. It did not go all cylinders. So Stribling, I think, is listed at 6'2". He's been productive in a big conference. I think him emerging is going to be big because what Caden can do underneath. What the tight ends can do when you have a guy on the perimeter who can stretch things and win 50-50 balls. I think that's going to be really, really big for them.
They have to have a receiver like that replace Trey Harris because, yeah, you're right. Caden Lee, he's most dominant in the slot. Maybe they try to do what they did with Juice and put him out wide, and it didn't really fit him. It was so nice to see Juice utilize how he thought he was supposed to be used. It was going to be used in the Gator Bowl, the slot, and in the Senior Bowl. They're using them same. I don't understand some of the stubbornness this year for certain things, but Ole Miss still won 10 games for the third time in 4 years, but missed the playoffs. So here I ask you, if these linchpin rebels, Michael Katz of the Daily Journal, what's your Twitter handle?
At Michael L. Katz.
At Michael, what's the L for?
Lawrence.
Lee. Yeah, like it. Michael at Michael L. Katz on Twitter / it's X on X. If these linchpin rebels do fulfill the prophecy and become the linchpin rebels we think they can be, what do you look at? Do you think Ole Miss can be then a title contender, a college football playoff contender, just a bubble team? What do you think the ceiling is with Austin Simmons so much new and these linchpin rebels kind of holding things down?
I think that, again, it is hard to say, but I think if things go well, I don't see any reason that this isn't a 9-3 team, which I think, given the circumstances, is pretty darn good when you've got so many new pieces and a young quarterback. And I think you'd feel pretty good about the future if this squad went 9-3. Obviously, you have opportunity to outperform that, to underperform. We know how that goes. But I think if the pieces that they added hit and the recruiting they've done in the last few classes all sort of lock in, and Austin Simmons is the guy we think he is because we think he's going to be very, very good. I don't think there's a reason this team can't be on the bubble again, and maybe the conversation is different this year. If you're 9-3, who knows? I think it's going to be different every year, but I think this is a team that if things go right, there's no reason they shouldn't be in that top 15-ish area.
And that is college football playoff bubble land. But if things fall right, and I think that's where I am too. And I think Ole Miss is operating that way as well. How they recruited in the portal, it wasn't the same. Let's go get Walter Nolan and Princely Umanmielen, Trey Amos, one and done guys for a title contender. Not saying they're not a title contender, but you're taking more risk and more chances, lottery tickets. Deshaun Womack is more upside still from what he was as a high school recruit than production at LSU. Princely Umanmielen, same thing as, even though he's got the name cachet of his older brother Princely, Nebraska, the numbers don't jump off the page, but man, if you see the kid, the upside, what he could be, and that's a lot what this Ole Miss team, what we're going to be talking about is what they could be, like with Bryson Sanders sticking at center or William Eccles sticking at defensive tackle. Because I'm looking again at the numbers. This is nuts to me. Ole Miss last year, do you know what they broke single season school records, Katz, for in two categories? Do you know them?
Sacks.
Yep.
Tackles for loss.
Yep. 52 and 120.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. It's insane.
That they only won 9 regular season games with that defensive line.
Yeah. I mean, they had the number 3 scoring offense and the number 2 scoring defense.
How does that team lose 3 games?
By 12 points.
All right. How many games each SEC team faces against top 25 national championship odds for their opposing schedule, if that makes sense? So top 25 national championship odds for your opposing teams that you're going to be playing next year. Ole Miss is tied for the second fewest with 5 faced next year. So the schedule is favorable enough. Now, it's February. It's February. And we still got to learn so much about these teams. But I'm with you. Even though it's lottery tickets, even though there's a lot of what if, that's the fun of it. And also, if it hits right, you're right back there in that contention, right back there in that conversation. And I'm sorry, I saw some rankings for like quarterbacks in the SEC Cats, and Austin Simmons was 10th. You know this list I'm speaking of. He was 10th. Now, Arch was first, and I don't get it because, listen, I
have a couple reasons.
Manning. But he hasn't proven anything. So, yes, the Manning name. But why would Garrett Nussmeier not be first? Why is Austin Simmons 10th behind Nico, who disappointed last year? I don't know.
Yeah, there's
give me a rank. Give me an more accurate ranking. Where should he have fallen? Where would you have ranked him?
I think I think Nuss is the best returning quarterback. I think we know the most about him. I think Arch in 2 or 3 is probably fair. Obviously, Lagway, if he's healthy, is up there. Lagway
he beat Ole Miss, man.
Lagway is a superstar. My goodness. Nico, maybe he makes that jump. Again, the talent's there. I think like 5 or 6 is reasonable for Simmons because, you haven't seen a ton of him, but what you've seen has been really, really good. And if you listen to what coaches say, they don't usually gaslight guys up as much as they have with Simmons. It sounds like they really, really believe in Simmons. Again, you don't get I know they got a quarterback in the portal, but it wasn't one who's probably reasonably going to challenge for this job. This is Austin Simmons' job. If they feel that confident in him, they got to feel pretty good with what they have.
It's not giving the benefit of the doubt or maybe the credit you should to a Lane Kiffin quarterback. Every quarterback he's had, Matt Corral was leaving, and then Lane comes in and turns him into Matt Corral. Jaxson Dart was productive at USC, but at Ole Miss, he became a record-setting quarterback, all-time great. And even in his first year starting competing with Luke Altmaier, Lane had him producing. So Lane's always going to have a quarterback. Go back to Alabama, and that's Alabama, and they recruit differently than everybody. Not anymore. Used to recruit differently than everybody. But, he's always going to have a quarterback that puts up massive numbers. So you compare that to guys like Torian Green and Nico, and you're like, I'll bet on that upside more. But if he doesn't hit, if he isn't Austin Simmons, all these linchpin Rebels cats and all these other, just not going to really matter unless AJ Maddox. I don't know. Hope springs eternal unless you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. This has been Talk of Champions. That's Michael Katz over there of the Daily Journal at Michael L. Katz on Twitter. Covers Ole Miss, does a tremendous job. Sat beside me for a little while on press row for Ole Miss beating Kentucky. And I was wanting to scream at everybody like, y'all realize how historic this is. But, you know, he was more concerned about the next great player that the Dodgers were able to buy from everyone else. Check out our friends at RiverLand Roofing. Thank you, Katz. This was fun, and we're going to do it again in more gimmicky stuff if you're game. But you got to be game and understand that we might get off on tangents about the Cowboys again.
I'm game. I just realized I'm going to be wearing a different Dodgers hat every time.
Oh, that's just going to crush my soul. Oh, thank you, Katz.
Give and take.